Good morning, all. Brian S. Pratt here. Going to be reading the first part of Jaikus and Reneeke Join the Guild, Book 1 of the Adventures Guild. Another series I got. This book here also is free at the various locations, online locations throughout the world. So if you're interested, just head on over to Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and download it. It's for free, or it should be. And if it's not, look around, it'll be free somewhere. Some places don't for some reason, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to read the prologue, a little bit of history. Now, this story is about two young kids, or lads, teenagers, probably 17 or so, and they want to join the famed Adventures Guild. And Reneeke is the more grounded of the two. Jaikus is the one pushing him forward to glory and fame. Reneeke would just be happy doing anything, but he's going because Jaikus is his friend, and he knows that if he doesn't tag along, Jaikus will probably get himself killed. I always think of Jaikus like Barney Fife. When I first wrote it, I didn't think about that intentionally, but the more I've written on Jaikus, the more he reminds me of Barney. So that means that Reneeke is kind of like Andy Griffith, I guess. Capable, has skills, grounded, stands by his friend, and Jaikus goes off half-cock at times. So this series here, this book here, is my favorite of anything I've written, because it's just funny. Jaikus tries to wrangle things and it just never works out for him. Anyway, I'm going to read the prologue today. Prologue, a little bit of history. All right, here we go. With commentary, spoilers if you haven't read it already. Just to let you know. Oh, and thanks for those who are following me daily. There's not many of you, which is fine. I enjoy doing this. So if I don't reach a large audience with this, that's fine. I'm not sure I'd like to reach 1 million people, or 2 million, or 100 million, but the 9 I'm getting to now is fine. And I say 9 because the last chapter of Broken Key, right now, that came out 1 day ago, has 9 views. Chapter 28 has 12. And so not many people are into this, going through this with me, and then that's fine. Oh, I had a dream last night. I got a report from my publisher. Actually, it was a new publisher, and apparently I had 11 quadrillion sales. Quadrillion means 1 with 16 zeros after it. That's how many sales I had, apparently. I was convinced of that, and I was showing everybody it. And then people were skeptical that I had gotten that many. And I was thinking, no, I did. But by the end of the dream, I had come to realize that it wasn't the number of sales, it was my account number. Anyway, I just had to share that. All right, prologue, a little bit of history. Rumor had it that the great city of Rekla had its beginnings nearly a millennia ago. Back then, it didn't even have a name. In fact, the only thing that could be said for what would one day become the preeminent city of the realm was that very, very few people knew of or cared about the place. A solid league from the road now called the Adventurers Way ran the main trade route linking the production centers of the east with the populations of the west. This collection of huts housed less than a score who barely scraped out a living. This gathering of the destitute, poor, and unwanted was situated at the northern fringe of Chaos Swamp. Reputed for being infested with creatures of great evil and ferocity, Rekla saw very few strangers willing to join their ranks. Hang on, I confused me. Okay. On the northern fringe of Chaos Swamp, the swamp being reputed for being Yeah, that sounds better. Okay, this gathering of the destitute, poor, and unwanted was situated at the northern fringe of Chaos Swamp. The swamp, being reputed for being infested with creatures of great evil and ferocity, Reckless saw very few strangers willing to join their ranks. The world ignored them, didn't care about them, and those that did find their way there, more often than not, continued on without so much as a how do you do, which for the most part the residents of the backwater cesspool in the middle of nowhere preferred. That was until the day when the great warrior Reckler decided to retire. His deeds were legendary. Why, even to this day, bards still regale their audiences with his exploits. One of his most famous adventures, the one people had requested for centuries, was how he slew the frost-drake Theriacula and rescued the Lady A from the sorcerer Voltune. A great tale of daring do and romance that made men thump the table in applause and women weep at the tragic ending. And this was but one of a dozen such tales that survived from his day. In the winter of his years, Reckler realized age was catching up with him. His reflexes had grown slower, and gray started to replace the dark brown. He knew it was time to hang up. Yeah. I went through this last night, and I'm still making corrections. 'Tis the bane of a writer, I guess. He knew it was time to hang up his double-headed battle axe and retire, for only a fool continued to adventure when youth had fled. There have been many theories as to why a warrior of great renown would settle in such a place. One suggested it was because he wanted the quiet solace he never had in his youth. Another put forth that he had fallen in love with a woman who lived there. But whatever the reason, this great warrior came to live among the residents at the edge of Chaos Swamp. As time went on, word spread of his whereabouts, and fellow adventurers whom he had known and adventured with would come to share a pint of ale and a tale or two of past exploits. Eventually, Reckless' shack was enlarged and grew into a tavern, then an inn. A few of Reckless' cronies retired there as well, desiring to continue being in the company of the great warrior. A few brought their families, others slaves, and this collection of ramshackle dwellings grew into a bona fide village. The place began to be called Reckless Place, Reckless Inn, and other names that have since been lost to the past. It was a century or more after Reckless' death that the elders gathered and stated that forevermore their village would simply be called Rekla. They were proud that their home would bear the name of the great warrior. Year after year, more and more adventurers gravitated to Rekla. The camaraderie of fellow warriors and the sharing of mutual histories drew men and women alike from throughout the realm. It seemed that whenever an adventurer grew too old or too infirm to continue, they would stake a claim, build a house, and hang out at Rekla's Inn. The earliest records indicated that the first real construction on what was now known as the Adventurers Guild hadn't begun until the 3rd century after Rekla's death. By this time, his original inn had undergone many additions to accommodate the influx of people. Rooms had been added, the courtyard built, and areas sprouted that were separated for the main classes of the day: fighters, thieves, and magic users. Magic users didn't start coming until the great magic user Mek built his tower not far from Rekla's Inn. Mek was brother to a fighter by the name of Breki, whom you may recall from such sagas as Breki and the Troll's Head or Breki atop the Goblin's Mound. Mek settled in Rekla when his brother lost a leg to an overzealous giant of the clan Dirtcloud. Ordinarily, a simple healing spell would have taken care of his leg, but the loss had occurred far from such aid, and by the time he reached civilization, the stump had healed to such an extent that the healers were unable to effect a restorative cure. After Mek built his tower, he accumulated a great collection of books that to this day could be found at the great library within the Adventurers Guild. Scholars and up-and-coming magic users came from all over to research spells. For one who walked the arcane path, Mek was unusually friendly and helpful. Now, the catalyst for the initial construction of the Adventurers Guild that we know today didn't come from a desire to create such a complex, but rather due to a massive migration of trolls from out of the swamp, overrunning the town in a spree of killing and destruction that resulted in more than a third of the buildings being either outright destroyed or burned to the ground, It took every able-bodied man and a few women to throw back the horde. Unfortunately, Rekla's inn, which had stood for 500 years, fell during the onslaught. Little more than charred beams and shattered stone remains, some of which can be viewed in the Gallery of Fallen Heroes, a room within the guild dedicated to those members who personified courage, resourcefulness, and success. Plans were drawn up in the months following the end of what came to be called the Troll Invasion. At first, the new building was going to follow the same lines as the previous one, only on a slightly larger scale. But the idea was proposed, by whom the histories fail to mention, to make the new construction into a centralized place where adventurers could come and find more than just a room, a good meal, and stories of past exploits. It became a place where heroes, past or prime, could still find value in their lives by teaching the younger, newer crop of adventurers. Other crafts came as well, fletchers and master crafters of bows, blacksmiths, and others whose services were in demand. Very soon, this new place was dubbed the Adventurers Guild, and the name has remained to this very day. Magic users were always part of the guild. Ever since the time of Mek, the joining of brain and brawn on adventures grew quite common. Thieves didn't come along until later. It had been rumored that thieves had always enjoyed a presence there, hiding in the shadows, but it wasn't until about a century ago that they were officially incorporated as part of the guild. The reasoning behind such a move depended on whom you asked. On the one hand, thieves played an important part in any adventure, disarming traps, picking locks, etc., so it only made sense to have them as part of the guild. The other side of the coin claimed that the thieves connived their way into the guild in order to be in on the know about the guild members' activities so they could beat them to the prize. By and large, the three classes coexist together fairly harmoniously. Each class was almost always represented in guild parties, a party being a group of adventurers that had banded together to hire out collectively. A few parties were formed entirely of fighters or thieves. Rarely had a party been comprised solely of magic users, as they tended to prefer having muscle-bound toughs taking the hard knocks while they fired off spells from a respectively safe distance. In the century since the village of Rekla first took the name of the renowned hero, it grew by leaps and bounds. Yeah, I like that better. Hang on a second. It grew by leaps and bounds. The league of open space between the original collection of huts situated on the northern edge of Chaos Swamp and the road now called Adventurers Way has been completely filled in by a town to rival any in the realm. Two other trade routes now wound their way to Rekla. One was the North Road, which led to the lands of the Kittikin, a place most civilized people would just as soon keep as far away as possible. Keep as far away from as possible. Brigand's Way was the other, so named due to the frequent raids on caravans and travelers foolish enough to attempt to pass without sufficient escort. Adventurer wannabes came from all over in the hopes of joining the guild. The prestige and glory which went with membership was something every lad desired. Unfortunately, only a very few ever succeeded in getting the honor of being added to the adventurer's roll of heroes. An auspicious sounding title, the roll was merely a list of currently active members and some who were past their prime yet still called the guild their home away from home. Before anyone was allowed to join, they had to be able to lay claim to the successful completion of an adventure. Of course, such an adventure could not be any old adventure, but one which satisfied three specific requirements. The first qualification was that there must have been some element of risk to life and limb. Finding a lost cat that had strayed too far from home would hardly count toward guild membership. Unless, of course, the cat in question weighed 500 pounds, had a mean disposition, and liked nothing better than to chew a man's head off. Then perhaps it would qualify as a bona fide adventure. The second qualification was for the adventure to be successfully concluded. If the whole point of the quest was to retrieve a specific item, then that item had better be in hand when all was said and done. Lastly, and perhaps most important of all, a reward of some kind had to have been given. After all, what good was an adventure if you didn't get paid for your troubles? A man has got to eat. Very few wannabes were able to satisfy the requirements, since most had no experience or training for such a life. The bones of many a lad could be found in out-of-the-way places where their misguided hopes to complete an adventure had had led to an untimely end. There were those having friends or relatives in the guild and could merely tag along on an adventure with a seasoned party to satisfy the requirements. For others without such connections within the guild, membership could be as elusive as a five-legged dog. Their resources were few indeed, and all held a high rate of mortality. But for those who made it, the rewards were great: fame, gold, and the chance to become a power in the realm. All were waiting for the one strong enough, smart enough, and especially lucky enough to survive. And that's it. So a little short today, but that was just, the prologue. And next one we will get into Jaikus and Reneeke's attempt to join the guild, which is the whole purpose of the whole book. Yeah, I like this history because it gives you an idea of how things. I like knowing how things got started and such. I mean, does the prologue really add anything? Atmosphere. It adds atmosphere. Plus, it gives you the three. It lays the groundwork for the three requirements to become a guild member. And Jaikus and Reneeke, man, they meet obstacles at every end. This is awesome. So here we start my third book on reading here on YouTube, and I've also started a being self-published. Someone over on TikTok asked me to do that, and so I'm doing things that talk about being self-published and the different aspects of it. From my own perspective, some may agree, others probably won't, and that's fine. Everyone's got their idea, and if someone doesn't agree with what I say, I have no problem with that, because everyone has their own experience, and they all try something different, and what works for me won't work for others, and what works for others may not work for me. All good. Anyway, I'm gonna go down and see my girlfriend. She's still in rehab today. It's Monday, Memorial Day. If you've got family and if you've had family fall in the line of duty, my condolences. And this is when we think about those people and we honor them. I did do one where I threw a couple thoughts out on Memorial Day, and it's important to remember things like that, I think. Anyway, you all have a good day. It's going to be gorgeous here. Probably 95, sunny. Probably 95% humidity too, so you get the good with the bad, right? Oh, I was asked the other day, Brian, what season do you like best? What is your favorite season? And I'm always saying, my favorite season is the next season, because I enjoy every season. There's not one I enjoy more than the other. But you get in one season, like we're in spring, well, you start looking forward to summer. The heat, getting out and doing things, everything's green and then turns brown. Your grass stops growing, which is awesome. You don't have to mow it no more. And then you get into summer, and by the end of it, it's like, man, this heat, I'm ready for some cool fall weather. Let's bring in the clouds, the rain. Let's cool some temperatures down. Then you get into fall. Man, winter. I can't wait for winter. Winter's awesome. I enjoy every season I'm in, but I always look forward to the next one too. Yeah, I don't like saying, limiting myself. Like, I hate summer. Well, that means 3 months or 4 months out of the year, I'm not going to be happy if I hate summer. So I won't let myself do that. So I find something to enjoy in everything. So every day can be a good day. Like I ever said, for every day that is not a good day is one less good day you'll ever have. So make every day a good day, and you'll start accumulating more and more good days. Just find ways to do it. It's not hard. Y'all take care. I'm rambling again. My girlfriend keeps getting on me about that. Make them short. Make them to the point. Yeah, I ramble. Talk to you later.